This is Valley News Live at 5.
Crime is up in a specific part of downtown Fargo, and police say they're working to fix it. Between June and July, they have responded to over 1,600 calls for service in downtown. Most of those calls coming in near Broadway and 4th Avenue North. Valley News Team's crime and safety reporter Bailey Hurley has more on what's being done.
Fargo police say while the perception is that downtown Fargo is riddled with crime, that's just not the case. Showing between June and July, the downtown area, also known as Beat 14, had significantly less calls for service than Beats 23 and 21, shown here on this map.
We have big city issues that we have to deal with, but it is very safe compared to almost any other city.
Really, downtown is a very positive and safe place for people to visit, shop, live, and we just want to make sure that people recognize that.
Halverson says what it comes down to with crime downtown is those suffering with their mental health or various substance abuse issues, which is something those at the Harm Reduction Center say they're actively working on trying to help the department with.
Their main goal is to respond to individuals in a crisis related to their substance use. So somebody passed out on a bench, somebody sleeping in the stairwell of the Roco ramp. Chances are if my staff weren't doing that, law enforcement would end up dealing with them later in the day anyways. So trying to take that pressure off the department so that they can respond to the more important issues and not be dealing with something that really isn't a police issue.
Sergeant Halverson says most of the aggravated assault and terrorizing charges that come out of the downtown area are rarely ever random attacks and instead deal with two different types of people.
The daytime ones tend to be in-group fighting of people that know each other. The bar closed ones tend to be alcohol-driven fights or disturbances after people are highly intoxicated.
Adding short term on top of the 3 downtown officers who already walk up and down the streets every day, more officers will be patrolling in and around the area, specifically in those crime hotspots. Bailey Hurley, Valley News Live.
Now, police want to add a 4th permanent downtown officer to the roster, as well as purchase Segways for those officers in an effort to help them get from one end of downtown to the other faster during critical incidents. There's new information this afternoon about the officer-involved shooting yesterday. David Brian Donnell Jr. is accused of shooting Red Lake police officer Ryan Belke. Officers say that Belke was one of several who responded to a call of a suicidal man with children possibly inside a home near Redby, Minnesota. When Donnell refused to comply with police, they kicked in the front door, and that's when police say gunfire broke out. Documents also say that Donnell told officers he was sorry as they took him into custody. Officer Belke died at the scene. The 37-year-old father of 4 was a 6-year veteran of the Red Lake Police Department. We didn't get into the 90s today. The upper 80s were warm enough. I know Hutch has mentioned things returning to more of an average for this time of year. Let's find out from him if that's still the case. Hutch?
Mike, indeed that is the case. We have some cooler air working its way now that our winds have become northerly, and we're watching a few different things. The first threat tonight, severe weather for a portion of our viewing area. And we're taking a look at the radar and satellite right now. Now, throughout the afternoon, the thunderstorms we started our day with have headed off to the east. Now behind it, the sunshine has allowed to shine through. That destabilized the air, and we're watching this area right here very closely in northwest Minnesota. And the latest satellite on visible imagery showing some cumulus clouds starting to develop in Roseau County. If you're north and west of that, out towards Hallock, or if you're in northwest or northeast North Dakota rather, your risk of severe weather is really waning quickly, but out in northwest Minnesota, that risk is there. Isolated tornadoes are possible. Hail greater than 2 inches in diameter is possible, along with damaging straight line wind gusts. So that's thing number 1 we're watching. How about thing 2? Well, thing 2 is that heat. Look at the triple digits, kind of suppressing down to the south, but still no fun down along the South Dakota border where we have high heat and high humidity, making it feel like 112 degrees, Mike Morgan, in Gwinner right now. That means stay hydrated and cool off if you start feeling lightheaded, dizzy, or other symptoms. We want to point out, too, these dew points are starting to dry out with those north winds. So that means more refreshing air heading our way towards morning, but north winds means a return to smoky skies. Your hour-by-hour forecast for the rest of the night and as we approach the weekend coming up here in just a few moments.
Winner's the winner, I guess, huh?
If you want to call it that.
All right, thanks. The woman accused of dragging a North Dakota trooper with her car has been charged with 8 crimes. On Monday, the trooper found her passed out in a vehicle at a rest stop near I-94 near Ariska after she was reportedly driving recklessly. He noticed signs that Amanda Levy was under the influence of meth. With the help of 2 Good Samaritans, the trooper was able to take her into custody. Court documents say the trooper's foot is broken. We now know the name of the 72-year-old Fargo woman killed in a head-on crash Monday afternoon northwest of Alexandria. Authorities say Ada Nolan was killed when her westbound vehicle crossed the center line of County Road 41 between Evansville and I-94, colliding with an eastbound pickup truck. 2 passengers in that truck were taken to the hospital. They were expected to be okay. A man is in jail after police say he broke into a car and later fought with officers last night. That happened in a 1300 block of 13.5 Street South behind the Meadows on University Drive. A man called police after confronting 24-year-old Cameron Redroad about breaking into his car. Police tracked down Redroad, eventually were able to take him into custody. He faces charges of preventing arrest, assaulting an officer, and breaking into a car, as well as 2 open warrants. A sex offender will spend the next 10 years in jail after exposing himself to a woman in Fargo. LaSamuel Richardson III was arrested in January of 2019 when a woman reported that he touched himself in front of her home. He was arrested a few days later during a traffic stop. Police found a rifle and dozens of rounds of ammunition in his car. He was later found guilty of possessing a firearm as a felon. The family of a Twin Cities boy who was severely injured when he was thrown off a balcony at the Mall of America is suing the mall. The family alleges the mall and its security detail knew about the man's violent tendencies due to his excessive criminal history and violent conduct at the mall. The boy suffered significant head and internal injuries and numerous broken bones in the attack. The lawsuit asks for money of current and past and future medical expenses, which right now are more than $1.7 million. A firearm company is offering to pay more than $3.5 million each to the families of victims killed in the Sandy Hook Massacre. That totals more than $33 million. 9 families are claiming in part that Remington marketed its Bushmaster's version of the AR-15 rifle for people to, quote, carry out offensive military-style combat missions against their perceived enemies. In 2012, Adam Lanza used the gun to murder 20 children and 6 adults at Sandy Hook Elementary in Newtown, Connecticut. Minnesota health officials are investigating a COVID-19 outbreak at the Castaway Club Young Life Camp. That's on Pelican Lake, which is about 45 miles east of Fargo. The camp manager says that he's aware of 10 cases involving staff members over the past 2 weeks, with no new infections in the last week. The facility typically hosts teenagers from different states, and a number of infected guests wasn't immediately known because the cases could have been reported in other states. The CDC, meanwhile, is saying fully vaccinated individuals should get tested if they've been exposed to COVID-19. The agency previously said that those who are fully vaccinated do not need to get tested following exposure unless they begin to develop symptoms. Now the CDC says that they should be tested 3 to 5 days after exposure, wear a mask in public indoors for 14 days or until they receive a negative test result, and isolate if they test positive. Meanwhile, Minnesota health and education officials are recommending that schools, follow the CDC's guidance for COVID prevention this fall. And here are some key points. Everyone at least 12 years old should get vaccinated before returning to school. Everyone should wear a mask in school buildings regardless of vaccination status. Schools should maintain at least 3 feet of distance between students in classrooms, and those who are not vaccinated should be tested for COVID-19 regularly. You can read the full guidance on our website at valleynewslive.com. We're a step closer for young children to get cleared for coronavirus vaccines. Pfizer is saying that they could release vaccine data on children 5 to 11 years old by the end of September. The company says the data would support the decision to allow vaccinations. This is a change from an original announcement pushing the age for emergency authorization of the vaccine from 2 to now 5 years old. The company says the data on those younger children could come later this year. Meanwhile, Pfizer also says a third dose of its COVID-19 vaccine boosts protection against the Delta variant. The company says a booster shot in younger people increased antibodies and the levels against that variant that are more than 5 times higher than what was seen after 2 doses. The company also says levels from the third dose were more than 11 times higher in older people than following a second dose. The CDC and the FDA say fully vaccinated people do not need a booster shot at this time. Later on Valley News Live at 5, there's so much going on during this year's Olympics. We'll get you caught up on the successes of Team USA.
Temperatures hit 90 for many, 80s in Lakes Country. This morning, some showers, even hail in the FM area and Comstock here. And Ryan, thanks for your photo. Here's where the rain fell. Now, in South Moorhead, I recorded 2 1/100ths of an inch of rain, but much more in isolated spots in the Southern Valley and Lakes Country. Heat in the forecast is going away. I'll have details next.